Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
This is what I love. You never know who's going to join us as a special guest. And very excited today to have award-winning author Larry Deiman joining us. And he's got 2 books out. He's working on the 3rd. We're going to talk about the 3rd in the process, kind of going behind the curtain of an author. Larry, great to have you with us. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's good to be here.
By the way, the book is called Incident at the Historic Museum. That's the first book. The second book, I always try to remember the title. Is it Canyon Springs Wash Murders?
Murders, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
When we say Wash, we mean Washington?
No. Canyon Springs Wash is actually a town that I made up in northern Texas. It's about 4.5 hours north of Dallas. And it's a small town, small one-horse town. You know, Main Street is like 1 block, you know, and it's in the middle of northern Texas. Yeah. So, and Canyon Springs Wash just seemed to work as the name of a town. I don't know if they have those around the country. I don't know, but it seemed to work for me.
So I'm curious, you know, when you come up with names of characters, towns, situations, as a writer, do you debate that for a while? Or you're thinking, you know, should it be Canyon Springs, you know, Boulevard Murders or whatever? Do you think about that, you know, before you commit to it?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. And truthfully, I didn't, for both books, Incident at the Historical Museum, I did not come up with that name until the end of the book. Same thing with Canyon Springs Wash Murder. I was about halfway through the book when I decided on the name of the town. So I was writing the book, probably 6th or 7th chapter in, and I hadn't really named the town yet. You know, I wasn't even sure if I was going to name the title of the book, the name of the town. And then it kind of occurred to me towards the end of the book, why don't I just name that the name of the town and then add murders to the end of it? Because it's Canyon Springs Wash Murders. There are some murders that happen. Some things happen within this town that the readers are going to want to be interested in hearing, and the reader and the stars of the book, Trevor and Jason, are right in the middle of this. You know, and murders happen. They're trying to book 2. They're trying to eradicate crime family from this town, Canyon Springs Wash, Texas, and that's really where the bulk of the story goes. I mean, there's a supplemental story that's kind of happening in Washington, D.C., but the main storyline is Canyon Springs Wash, and that's where all the action is.
You know why I think I equated the Wash with the Washington? Because the Historic Museum, the first book, that is in Washington.
Washington, D.C., yeah.
That's why
the Historical Museum. Yeah, the Historical Museum is actually a fictitious museum in Washington, D.C.
So I thought
because
that's why I connected it. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason I chose Washington, D.C. is because the museum capital of the world is in Washington, D.C. All the major museums have a museum in Washington, D.C. That's why I thought, well, you know, it's probably a good place to, you know, place my characters and place my storyline. So you think about these things while you're writing, you know.
I'm wondering your writing space. When you write, and we talked about this before, you do work, especially during the pandemic. I think it's in the living room.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you write where you are right now in the kitchen? Yeah,
in the dining room, actually.
And
I sit at the dining room table and I write in there on my laptop.
How many pages, how many chapters can you typically get done in a period of time?
Well, when I was working on Canyon Springs Wash Murders, I probably got 3 or 4 chapters done in a day.
Wow.
You know, you get on this this idea, and then you just keep on writing. And at some point, you have to decide where the chapters are going to end and start. You know, and generally, what I do is with my books, if you look at the way the books are written, each chapter goes somewhere else. So if I've got two storylines, like in Canyon Springs Wash Murders, I've got a storyline that's going on in DC, but the main storyline is in Canyon Springs Wash, Texas. So every other chapter is going to go back to Washington, D.C., where the supplement or the other storyline is going. Same thing with his historical museum. That book is the same thing, although they're two different storylines in the same city. Every other chapter is going back to the other storyline. So that way you're kind of mixing it up so that you've got to wait to the next chapter to get to hear what happens from, say, chapter 5 to chapter 7.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes I throw two chapters back to back for the same storyline. But for the most part, what I've been doing is every other chapter has been a different storyline. So main storyline and then the supplemental storyline. Canyon Springs Wash Murders is the same way. The supplemental storyline is in Washington, D.C. So that's going on every other chapter while something else is going on in Canyon Springs. See? And my third book is doing the same thing.
Is that a standard formula or is that your formula?
That's my formula. That's my way of doing things because I think it's more interesting. It allows me more latitude when I'm writing. If I have more than one storyline going, my same thing with book 3. I've got my storyline in Washington, D.C., and then the main storyline, which I haven't come up with a title yet, but the main storyline is going to be Trevor's team, or Trevor, part of Trevor's team. But Trevor and part of his team are going to go after his old nemesis in the main storyline, and then the other half of his team is going after, kind of like another nemesis in Washington, D.C. So he splits up his team, but down the road in book 3, I'm thinking 2 or 3 chapters from where I'm at right now, those two are going to combine. And then we're going to have a one storyline that's going to go all the way to the end of the book. And that's going to be, this book is going to be chock full of excitement and adventure, just like the second book and the first book. It's going to have a lot of it.
I want to get in your head as a professional writer. I really do. I find it fascinating. Okay. Did you have a passion when you were younger to write?
Not really. I really didn't. When I was younger, I was more interested in computers because there were none. When I got my first computer, I should say when I saw my first computer, I was in my senior year of high school. So before that, it was car phones, or it was, the technology was very sketchy back then. But when I got into my senior year of high school, we got our first computer, and that just fascinated me. So that's what I went to school for. I've got several degrees in one form or another of IT management, all kinds of different IT levels. Okay, I never really thought about writing a book until I met this friend of mine who is portrayed as Jason in my books. This friend of mine and I got to be talking, and he owns the security company in Minneapolis. And the adventures that we were sharing, the two of us, kind of got me to thinking, I could probably make this something. So I started writing this book, and lo and behold, it ended up to be a really good book that everybody seems to like. Yeah. But I really never thought about it until my mid-50s. That's when I really started thinking, I can do this. I was looking for something that would be interesting and exciting for myself. And I think writing a book was really exciting for me because it allowed me to go between the pages that I'm writing and kind of become part of that story. And that's what I think excited me. And that's what got me to keep on writing.
It's almost as if you're living vicariously through your characters in some regard, right?
I am. Yeah. I really am. To me, my character is Trevor. And, a lot of the things that Trevor does in the book, I would have loved to do when I was his age, but I was the guy that worked at a career job, and I was afraid to take a chance, back then. Trevor's not afraid to take a chance. Trevor takes risks and they pay off. I mean, they have to because he's the star of the book. But
Of course.
I kind of, as you put it, I live vicariously through Trevor. So what Trevor does are things that I wanted to do when I was that age, and I'm now doing them through the pages of my books, which is kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting to do that, but I'm getting to do that through Trevor, and I love that because I can all the things that I wanted to do way back when, like we're talking 30 years ago,
Mhm.
I can do now through Trevor.
Yeah.
So I can just keep on writing.
There's no boundaries. You can do
There's
whatever
no
you want.
boundaries.
You know,
Exactly.
because even 30
Every
years ago, you couldn't
Yeah.
just say, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm gonna up and leave, and I'm going to go on vacation for a month just because I want to.
Yeah.
When I get back, I'll have a job, and everything will be okay." Yeah, we wouldn't do that.
exactly exactly. I won't do that, but Trevor will.
Yeah. Right.
And that's why I think that's why I started writing, because I started thinking about things that I hadn't done that I would have liked to do, and that I don't know. I don't want to say that I felt like I had missed out on something,
Mhm.
but I felt like I was being too cautious
Yeah.
over the years.
Yep.
And with Trevor's an FBI agent now, so Trevor can take all the chances he wants as long as he stays within the boundaries of what's acceptable for the FBI, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
And but there are so many things that he's doing that I would have loved to do back in those days. And when there were some things that I did when I was younger that I probably took chances on. I was a bounty hunter for a number of years.
Wow.
My partner Jason and I,
Like the
he-
real
for 5 years,
Jason, the real
the
life
real one.
Okay.
Yeah, the friend that is portrayed by Jason. He
Right.
and I chased after hardened criminals for 5 years, bringing them back to jail. And we loved it. We had a great time. We went all over the countryside, snatching up bail jumpers, and some of them were just small potatoes, and some were really high potatoes, like murderers and rapists and that kind of stuff. And when I was really young, when I was like 17, I used to repossess cars in some of the worst neighborhoods of Chicago.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
So it's almost like you were scratching the surface of their, Trevor's personality. Just kind of like, you're almost there.
Yep.
But it's like, all right, now it's time to, I don't want to say be an adult, but now it's, more responsibility.
Yep.
I always say do the right thing. But sometimes in that case, what's the right thing? Should I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Exactly.
that's the responsible thing. If you want, by the way, if you want to check out his books, it's trevorsadventure.com. So Trevor's with an S, adventure.com. We're getting instant feedback. You can reach us, by the way, anytime at instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. This is from Jesse in Freeport, Maine. And Jesse says, I'm writing my first book. I find myself getting excited during the day when I have an idea and can't wait to get home to continue writing. Does that happen to you?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
I ended up what I ended up doing was I ended up putting a notepad next to my bed, because I used to come up with these brilliant ideas in the middle of the night, and I'd wake up and I couldn't get back to sleep because I had this idea running in my head. So I'd write it down so I wouldn't forget it for the next day. And I think that's common with most writers. I always had these ideas throughout the day, and I would just write them down. And then you got to figure out where you're going to put that in your book. But I always had that problem, and I had it with both my books that are out there, and I'm having that same problem right now with my third book. I need to figure out how to, because I got all these ideas of things that I want to put in the book, and then you got to figure out how you're going to make it work in the book. Like my second book. I had this epiphany one night, and in the middle of the night, I woke up and went down to my computer and started writing the ending of the book, because I had this great idea for the ending of the book, but I was only on like chapter 6, so I had like 8 chapters to go. So I ended up writing the ending of the book before I got to the ending of the book, which was kind of cool. But
wow. So I would imagine
yeah.
you have a notepad or a file on your computer with lots of ideas, just like bam,
Oh
bam,
yeah.
bam, 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 and
Yeah.
then it's it's like you're baking something. You have all these ingredients. Should
Mhm.
you use them
Yep.
all? Do you really need to hit up more oregano here or whatever it might be? And there's
Yeah.
probably, I'm going to guess, Larry, there's probably going to be times where there's stuff you never got to put in the book. You just couldn't get it in there.
There are. Yeah, there are. They just some ideas just didn't seem to work, but I use Microsoft OneNote, and that is my dictionary of all my ideas for
Hmm.
all my books. I put everything there, and then I sift through it when I'm trying to get past a certain point of the book, and I try to find whether or not an idea that I came up with, say a week ago, will work. So you're right. A lot of the things that I put down or that I make notes of, I don't put in the books because they just don't fit. But some are like a perfect fit, and then I come up with these scenarios behind those ideas that make the whole book work. You know, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you get these ideas, and yeah, you have to you get excited about it, and then all of a sudden now you can't sleep.
Yeah.
And you can't wait to get home because I got this idea, so.
Got to commit it to a chapter quick.
Yeah, exactly. Got to.
So do you test? I'm curious about this. Aside from your publisher,
Yeah.
do you test out chapters on people in your circle, or do you wait till the whole thing is done?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a really good friend of mine, Robin, who is a good friend of mine. She's actually a colleague at work, and I run ideas past her and see what does this make sense to you? And she'll say yay or nay, or she'll say, well, maybe if you did it this way, so yeah, I bounce ideas off of people I know. I got
people. It can't be just anybody. It's got to be somebody not only that you trust and respect, but people that get literature, books, because if I threw it to my friend Gary, I love him. And he's he would be Jason in your world. I've known him forever. And if I wrote something, I throw it to him, yeah, it's okay. I need feedback.
Well,
Give me
it really doesn't help me. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem I have with actually. I've gotten a lot of my ideas from my buddy who is portrayed by Jason. I mean, I get these ideas. I see him. I talk to him all the time. I see him all the time, and I run these ideas past him. And I said, now keep in mind, this is your character. So is this something you might want your character to do in the book? And he kind of, look at, well, maybe we can do it this way instead. So we'll kind of get this idea back and forth, and we'll kind of throw the idea out. But I love running ideas past my friends because you get a different perspective from people.
Sure.
And whether you use it or not, it may or may not work, but at least you're getting ideas that you maybe didn't think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've got a lot of ideas on what I want to do with these books. My first two books, they became really popular because of the storyline. Well, I'm working on book 3, and I need to figure out how to keep that excitement going, because it's still continuing adventures of Trevor and Jason. So I have to keep that story or that excitement in the story going. And I keep that going by keeping excitement in the characters, what they're doing, so.
That's a
fun
challenge. I got to think that's a big challenge. And, I guess we could look at it this way. Let's say you're a music celebrity. You came out with a hit song. You had the follow-up hit. Now you're on to the third one. And you want it to be as powerful as the other ones. And you want people to say, yeah, he's still on his game. So, yeah, it's a challenge.
Exactly. I don't want, when the third book is published, I don't want people to think, oh, that doesn't really live up to the first two books, and the comments that I've gotten from people who've read the book, both books, is that the first book is really good, but the second book is even better. See, I like that, and how do I make the third book just as exciting, or make that better than the second book? It's, or at least as good as the second book, because the second book has got a lot of action in it, and that's what makes the second book exciting, and more exciting maybe than the first book. So yeah, that's what I struggle with right now. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out when I get to the end of the book.
We talked to, Jesse had the question before. and is a first-time writer. What's your advice for people like that? Or maybe they love literature, maybe they did it in school and they were really, and then they put it on, to the side. What would your advice be to them?
Well, my advice would be to go with your passion. I mean, when I wrote these books, I had a passion for the stories I was writing, and write about what you're passionate about. Don't write about things that you don't know. I mean, you can always add things to the book that that you don't know by just doing research on the internet. Like I did. I didn't know squat about Washington, D.C., but I learned about Washington, D.C. I've never been there, but I learned about Washington, D.C. through the internet. But that doesn't really affect my storyline other than the fact that I wanted factual streets and landmarks in Washington, D.C. in the book. I wanted people to be able to identify with that.
Sure.
So, but if you're going to write a book, be passionate about what you're writing about. If you've got a passion about something, write about it and then worry about the facts later. You can always come back and put the facts in later. I mean, I did that. I wrote the book out and then I came back and I made a lot of changes when I read the whole book through for the first time. And what I changed were more factual than passion. My passion was there, but some of the facts I needed to correct. So write out the passion that you've got, and then worry about the facts later.
I can't imagine writing a book about a subject that you know nothing about. How do you invest yourself into it? And you can fudge it a little bit with, like you say, checking facts and things like that. But you need the foundation.
Yeah, if you don't know, or if you have no experience in the foundation of what you're writing about, then why would people want to read it?
Yeah.
You want people to read it and enjoy your book. And when people read my books, they can read or feel the passion that I had when I wrote the books. And that's, if you don't have that when you get to the end of the book, then you probably haven't hit the mark that you're looking for. You really want to be passionate about the subject you're writing about. And if you don't know, everybody's got a passion about something. If you don't know, just go back, do what I did, go back and kind of explore some of the things that you did. I've got a lifetime of experiences that I probably never thought about, things that I could put into these books. And now that I've written my first two books and I'm on a third book, I can throw some of the things that I've done in the past into these books. And those will be just as passionate as if I were there along at the same time. I mean, it's all about how you write it, and how you feel about what you're writing.
I love getting inside your head. I find it fascinating, the process. It's creative, it's interesting. We're just about out of time. Give us the website once again if somebody wants to learn more about the books and learn more about you.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to talk to anybody who is interested in my books or interested in writing like I did. My phone number is on my website. You can't miss it. It's up in the upper right-hand corner of my first screen or my home screen. Feel free to call me. Email me. My email address is in the back. You can, in the contact me page, you can go in and just write whatever you want to me. It comes right to my email, and I'll be happy to answer any and all inquiries. Anybody that wants to talk about my passion or writing about their passion, I would love to help.
Fantastic.
And I would love it if everybody would go into my trevorsadventure.com website and buy my books. I think you'll enjoy them. I mean, I enjoyed writing them. I've read the books probably a dozen times straight through, only because I had to, because I was editing my own book. And every time I read my book, the parts where you should get a tear in your eye, I get a tear in my eye. And I wrote them, and that's how you know that it's good, because if I write the book and I get I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. If I get teary-eyed, emotional, and I get emotional over certain parts of the book that I want the reader to get emotional over, then I know I've done a good job.
I totally agree. And because you wrote it, you've read it, you've maybe lived it to some extent, and it's still resonating with you. That's I think that's the mark of a good book. Larry Deiman, great having you on, and looking forward to catching up again. And let's stop talking. you're in your writing space. Get back to work, man. Get back to work.
I will do that. All right. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.